What is going on, New York Giants fans? I am super excited to get back at it for my next episode of the Gettleman Project. Now, if you guys are new to this type of video, it's a mock draft. It's a simulation. Now, these mocks aren't necessarily what I would pick to happen. I'm going to have my mock draft, my final mock, a week before the draft, maybe 3-4 days leading up to it, where I do the first 2 rounds, probably, of the NFL draft. I'll probably have another video also where I discuss the late round guys more in depth than I have, that I think the Giants could and should target. But in this, it's a simulation. It's not necessarily what I think will happen, but I like to create scenarios, put myself in the mind of Dave Gettleman on draft night, and in these specific scenarios, what I would do. We've had several scenarios. We've had Haskins falling to 6, which is what a lot of people think will happen. We've had the Giants trading down from 6 to 11, and we filled in a ton of assets that way. We've had the Giants trading down from 17 to 24, and filling a lot of assets that way. We've had them getting jumped for Haskins, and Quinn Williams fell in their lap. In this scenario, we're going to have the Giants trading up. They're going to go after a guy that they're going to be aggressive for, and they're going to go and get him. But by doing so, they're going to pay a big, big price. I'm very excited to get into it, and I'd like to get your guys' take at the end of the video, what you think about this potential scenario. As always, I like to go over what the Giants need. Biggest needs are in this year's draft, and that is the quarterback position, starting there. Eli Manning, we all know, is 38 years old. You have a high draft pick. You have an opportunity to take one. If you like one, I think you got to do it. Pass rusher is probably the biggest need. I mean, they've not been able to get after the quarterback now for 3-4 years, so they need a pass rusher in this year's draft. They absolutely do, and they need to hit on them. Right tackle. I mean, right. You can't go in with Wheeler. They need a right tackle. They desperately need a right tackle. They also need a center. But I think they'll address that later in the draft. But they need a right tackle sooner than later in this year's draft. And there's a bunch of them out there in this first round. So we'll see if we go there this time around. And then a cornerback position. I think Janoris Jenkins, as I've said, will be cut. And next year, I think he'll play this year, of course. And of course, we have Beal, the rookie corner, who I don't have full faith in. So I could certainly see them going corner early in this year's draft. And if certain opportunities presented themselves, I would go corner with the 17th pick, as I've shown in some of these mock drafts. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's find out what the New York Giants are going to do in this simulation. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get to pick number 1. So, as I'm sure you can see before we get started, the draft board is much smaller than it's been in my previous mock drafts. I normally have the first 5 picks mocked, but of course we're going to have the Giants trading up, and we're going to get to that trade in a second. In my first 5-6 mock drafts, whatever it's been, I've had the Cardinals selecting Kyler Murray because I believe where there is smoke, there is fire. And if I had to guess, I still think Kyler Murray will be going to the Cardinals. But I wanted to do a simulation where the New York Giants go out and get Kyler Murray. I know a lot of Giants fans want to see that. A lot of Giants fans, they love this kid. So in this simulation, I am going to have the Cardinals staying status quo and taking Nick Bosa, who a lot of people believe is the best and safest pick in this year's draft. And they can certainly use a pass rush. At number 2, I'm going to have the 49ers. With Bosa off the board, they could go Quinn Williams here. But I think they want that guy off the edge. He doesn't fit their defense perfectly, but I'm going to have him taking Josh Allen. And that's the only way I think this possible scenario works. Because if I think if the 49ers went Quinn Williams, I think the Jets would just take Josh Allen and they wouldn't trade down. And he would fall to the Raiders. A lot of people have said the Oakland Raiders have a lot of interest in Kyler Murray. So that is why I had the New York Giants trading with the Jets to jump the Raiders in this scenario. So here it is. I have the New York Giants trading up from 6 to 3 with the New York Jets. Now, I had the Giants paying a little less of a price than the Jets did last year when they did the same exact thing, when they jumped from 6 to 3 to go and get their quarterback. Because I feel like last year the quarterbacks were thought of a little higher than Kyler Murray this year. But it's a very similar trade, and it's what I think the Giants would have to give up to do this. I have the Giants surrendering the 6th overall selection, this year's second-round pick 37, a future second-round next year, and a future 4th. Now, the Jets had to give up that year's second and 2 future seconds. So instead of that 3rd second, I had the Giants giving up the 4th. But a very similar trade, and it's what I think the Giants would have to give up if they wanted to trade for Kyler Murray in this year's draft. And to make this possible, a lot of things have to happen. Like I said, the Cardinals, of course, have to pass on them because the price to jump from 6 to 1 would be even more than this. And it'd be insane, and this is insane enough. And the Jets have to be willing to trade. And for the Jets to be willing to trade, I think Josh Allen would have to be off the board. I think he fits the team perfectly, and I think if he's there, I think the Jets will take him. So I think all that had to happen for this trade to become possible. Because if the Jets pass on him and they take Quentin Williams or whoever, I really do think the Raiders would take Kyler Murray. I don't think there's any chance Murray gets to the Giants at 6. The only way, in my opinion, they could get Murray is to trade up for him. So here it is. With the number 3 overall selection, the New York Giants take Kyler Murray. So the Giants pay a hefty price to move up and get last year's Heisman Trophy winner, the quarterback with very high upside. Kyler Murray has a very strong arm, as I said. He's very quick on the run. This guy is fantastic. The only thing I worry about is his durability. But the RPO with him and Barkley will certainly keep defensive coordinators staying awake at night, similar to what we saw with Robert Griffin when he started his rookie year. That Redskins offense was dynamic, and if Griffin would have stayed healthy, he would have been a great quarterback in the NFL. That's the risk you take when you take Kyler Murray. Now, a lot of people say he stayed healthy, and he has. And he's been a winner his whole career. He was undefeated in high school. We all know this. But to do this, the Giants paid a very hefty price. We all know all the holes they filled. They went over them at the beginning of the draft. Well, they gave up their second-round pick. So now they're not picking again until 95. They gave up next year's second-round pick and a future 4th as well. So big price to pay. And let's get back to the draft to see how we're going to fill one of our remaining holes with the 17th overall selection. Let's jump right into it. So we're right back at it at 4 with the Raiders. And the Raiders are up, and they're going to take the best available player on the board, and that's Quentin Williams, the D tackle from Alabama. I don't even think they should think twice. Now, some mocks have Williams falling. I think that's crazy. At 5, the Bucs are up, and they're going to take the same guy we've had them taking now for the last 6 mock drafts, and that's Devin White. I think Devin White's going to be unbelievable in the pros, and I think they need some help there in the middle linebacker. The Jets need an edge rusher, and the Jets could go 2 ways here after the trade down, picking at 6. In my opinion, there are 2 players that fit their need very well in the 3-4 scheme, and that's either Burns or Montez Sweat. In this specific scenario, I'm going to have the Jets taking Burns at 6 after the trade down. The Jaguars are up at 7, and they're going to get a player that fits their offense very nicely. T.J. Hockenson, the tight end. The Lions are up at 8, and I'm going to have them filling a hole there on the offensive line, getting Jawan Taylor. The Bills have a huge hole on the offensive line. They could go Metcalf here. They need some punch, but I'm going to have them stick them with the offensive line with Jonah Williams. The Broncos go out and get their man, Drew Lock. Everybody knows John always loved this kid. At 11, the Bengals. The Bengals could go middle linebacker here with Bush, but I think Haskins is too good to pass up here at 11 for the Bengals. I love Haskins, and I think you're getting good value there at 11, Bengals fans. At 12, the Packers are up, and the Packers need to address the interior presence on that defensive line. They've gotten 2 exterior pass rushers. They've gotten a good safety. I think Ed Oliver's a perfect fit here to the Packers. At 13, the Dolphins are going to go out. They're going to get themselves a nice edge rusher. They lost Cameron Wake, and I like Clelin Ferrell. I really do. Going to the Dolphins at 13. The Falcons at 14. I've had them taking Burns in a lot of my mocks. Of course, the Jets took him at 6 this time around. And a lot of people seem to think that they are infatuated with Ed Oliver. Well, Rashawn Gary is very similar. And you're getting good value at 14, so enjoy him, Atlanta. At 15, the Washington Redskins are going to go out and they're going to get themselves a playmaker in DK Metcalf. And at 16, the Carolina Panthers go Montez Sweat. I've had them going offensive line a lot in my drafts, but I think Montez Sweat's too good to pass up here at 16, and I've read a lot of things that the Panthers actually could use an edge rusher. So I think Sweat makes a lot of sense here, which brings us up at 17. And that brings us up at 17. Now, in this spot, I've done a lot of different things throughout my mocks. But in this scenario, much like the scenario where we took Dwayne Haskins, I'm going to try to go for biggest need. But in this mock, all the top pass rushers are off the board. And this may not happen. In this scenario, if any one of those guys fell here, if Ferrell was here, if Ed Oliver was here, if Montez Sweat was here, if Brian Burns was here, you know, I would take them at 17. But in this scenario, it didn't happen. So I am not going to go pass rusher. As bad as our pass rush has been and our defense has been, because we made that trade, we traded up, and a pass rusher did not fall to us, we are now going to have to wait until the 3rd round to try to address the pass rusher. Because, of course, we traded our 2nd-round pick to go and get the quarterback. Now, if a pass rusher fell, then we'd have to wait till the third round to go offensive tackle. Now, because I think offensive tackle is our second biggest need, as much as I would love to take a cornerback, I would love DeAndre Baker, can't do it. I would love Greedy Williams, can't do it. So I have to go offensive line here. And I'm going to go with the offensive lineman who played with Kyler Murray in college and a guy who I really like. It's either Dillard or Cody Ford here, and I'm going to go Cody Ford. Very athletic, could play the offensive tackle for the Giants for years to come. He'll probably eventually shift over to the left side as Solder gets older. And I really like Cody Ford here at 17 in this particular scenario. And what I think the Giants now would have to do throughout the remainder of the draft would absolutely be to couple some of those late picks to move back up into either the late second round or early third round to try to fill some of these holes, because we all know all the Giants' holes that they have. And by getting Kyler Murray, yeah, now we've shored up the offense. We really have. We've addressed the offensive line with the right tackle. We've gotten our quarterback of both the present and future. But the defense, I mean, it is bad. I mean, they need to fill a lot of holes on that defense, and they passed up an opportunity to do so. Now, they could do it in free agency next year, and they could do it in next year's draft, and they could try to find some guys, diamonds in the rough, in the remainder of this year's draft. But you passed up on a lot of talent to go and get Kyler Murray. So, there you have it. Would I love this scenario? Absolutely not. I know some Giants fans would, though, and I wanted to paint a picture of what I think it would cost to go and get Kyler Murray in this year's draft. As always, if you like what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.